I talked to him, he said, well, it's okay, I watched the whole video. So what you could do when you're watching the video is make notes for yourself. This at this point, this is where chaturanga is, you know, from here on in, because we're still going through this. So that might be another way to solve that problem. We did, I remember doing dolphin on the table in the back, right? So, like, when we get to all of these big inversions, not everybody's going to be teaching those, and not all of that is very valuable. So I'm thinking what I'd like to do is move through some of the things that are more for Yoga 1, Yoga 2, and then variation for Yoga 3 students, and save the kind of Yoga 4 stuff for a separate class. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. Because we've done a lot of the chest openers and things like that, yes?
As far as we actually stopped going through this stuff in class last time, it was at the end of page 3 of that.
Right, exactly. So I'm going to leave three-legged table for the abdominal section. Does everybody knows how to do cat stretch and chakravakasana? Did we go over that? I'm on page 3.
And when you say cat stretch, I've heard you say not to do, say like cat-cow kind of thing.
Right.
What is it that you just refer to as cat?
I just call it cat stretch,
Cat stretch.
and when it goes back to child's pose, I call it chakravakasana. Right, because then there's more motion.
And I was curious about that. What is it? Is chakravakasana the actual movement of rounding the back and bringing the hips to the...
It's a great question. It's the wheel-like motion of this, watch. Can you see that I'm describing a wheel? The bottom half of the wheel, the top half of the wheel. The bottom half of the wheel, the top half of the wheel. Does that make sense?
So the chakravakasana is the movement, and you are taking chakravakasana itself to child's pose.
No, chakravakasana this is cat stretch.
Right.
When I go back like this, and when I go forward like this, it becomes chakravakasana.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and it's a clarification in terms. You know, some people call it cat-cow. I don't, because I don't like the sinking aspect of a cow. And I think it's helpful if we all use the same terminology, because then when you do go from class to class, it's not like something that is, it's like Starbucks. You get your latte the same way every time, which doesn't mean every class has to be the same, but something like that just is easy, right? So that's my thinking on that. So what are the main points to include as you, are we videoing this?
Yes,
Yes,
started
okay,
now.
thank you. What are the main teaching points to include as you teach cat stretch? Let's just call them out.
Pull your chest through.
Pull your chest through your arms.
Hollow the belly round the back.
Hollow the belly, round the back into flexion. Inhale, coming forward.
Support your back.
Exhale.
Support your back with your breath. That's a good way to say it, yeah. So as you draw your belly into your spine, you're supporting it, rather it's going to help to lift it up. Yeah.
Shoulder blades gliding.
Shoulder blades gliding down as you inhale and come forward. Then where do the shoulder blades go?
Up as you come.
Up,
Out.
out, right? They're not up,
Yeah.
and then they passively glide up, right? So it's if you've come to my classes, I teach that all the time. We'll do classes where I say, today we're going to focus on the movement of the shoulder blades. So even in here in cat stretch, you can pay attention to your shoulder blades. And I think that's an important point to make with your students, that in any one given asana or sequence of asanas, You could have many different focal points for your attention, right? You could be focusing on the breath, on the movement of the pelvic floor, whatever it is. But, you know, that's a good one to focus on shoulder blades, yeah. Okay, what are some of the common errors in Chakramakasa?
Which you inhale.
Which one? Yeah. What else? Yeah, one of the most common errors is not to find this position, but to kind of be like this. Like to come forward and then just to kind of go back like this. So they go inhale, exhale, kind of like a rocking horse, right? So what we do generally, and you've probably seen me do it in class, and tell me if we've already covered this, just stop me right away and let's propel it on. Can you do it, Lisa, like
Sure.
that? Thanks, just go that way if you don't mind. I always pick one with the hair. All right, so inhale forward. And then exhale, start to go back. So I would probably just stop her here and say, let your head go. Press this up into my hand. Yeah? And usually it works. If it doesn't, then if she did that, I would do this. Then I'll say, would you mind if I touch your ribs? Okay. Then exhale, and I'll do this. Right? So I'm giving her, if she doesn't get that she has to hump, and I'll say, you're going to hump your spine like a Halloween cat. When I hold her, I'm just very light on the side ribs, and that will usually work. If she's having trouble getting the forward, sometimes people come forward like this, and there's just no way they're getting spinal extension, then it's this. Jump to the hair.
My hair's down.
I might gently take the hair if need be. Yeah?
Are you pushing?
Yeah. I was pushing my elbow down gently without digging, and then just pulling back, yeah. Round it. And then. And so the best way to, and I would even just leave her head's fine, because we don't want them to do this, yeah? The best way for you to practice, because if we all partnered up right now, that would take 15 minutes, you know, is to practice those things with your study buddy, you know, and say, here, you do it like that, thank you so much, and let me give you that adjustment, right? So that's one that we do a lot, and you know, it's a great practice for people, because what does it do in your back?
Flexion extension.
Flexion extension, yes, so it provides a motion that we don't normally get in the day. What does it stretch in your back when you come back to child's pose? Stretches the quadratus lumborum for sure. What else?
Those little muscles, what are they called? Spines? Spinae?
Okay.
Okay.
Right? All the little rotators and all the little spinal muscles. And then the big spinal erectors, the big longitudinal muscles. And that's why you don't want people to come back in extension. I mean, it's not horrible if they come back like that. But when they really round back, that's when they get those big longitudinal muscles stretching, right? So as best you can, getting that is kind of a good idea. Yeah? All right. And it teaches scapular stability, right? When you pull your chest through and you feel your shoulder blades down. So stretching and some strengthening is also good for the wrists. Another common error is to not be close enough, to be too close. So you want to flatten your back, but it's not really that they should flatten their back, it's that they need more space, right? So again, always look at the base when you're looking at what's going on in a pose, yeah? Okay, so that's one worth spending time on. We'll make a note that 3 and 2-legged table we still have to get to. We did dolphin on the floor and dolphin plank, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'll leave dolphin feet up on the wall and all of that out for now.
What page are we on?
Page 3.
What's the bottom? Which row?
Viparita Karani at the wall. Weight-bearing arms and shoulders, shoulder stabilization. Halasana with bolster under hips. Let's leave that till we get to inversions. I'm just marking as we go because then I know from you too. Okay.
What is Viparita?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry to regress, just a touch. Often cat stretch in your classes is done standing up too.
Oh, Yeah.
Some things to look for, elbows going up, shoulders going up, easier to default kind of when you're standing.
No, you are absolutely right. And, you know, teaching cat stretch standing is not as optimal, to be honest, as on the floor, because you don't get quite the same position. The potential for error is high. However, if you're standing in an airport or a museum, you know, going like this actually feels really, really good. So it's not horrible. It just takes a little while for people to get it. So I'll go over this one too, because it's good to put in a yoga one class, correct, Alice? Yeah, all right. And you can put it in yoga, any other class too. So hands on the thighs, pulling the shoulders back, not like this, and not like this. Why not like this? Why not fingers in? Right, brings the shoulders in. So I'll usually say bend the knees, thumbs inside the knees, roll the shoulders back, extend the spine, don't overwork your head. And I'll usually, if it's brand new, I'll demonstrate it to people first. From here, exhale, feel like someone's poking you in the belly, legs almost straight, arms straight, so you look like a human candy cane. Then bend your knees, tailbone moves first. Chest pulls in through pulls through the arms. Exhale, press down into the feet. Now you could say lift the pelvic floor, belly button up, upper back broad. And this is one where I'm almost always describe what not to do. So I'll say the common errors are to put your fingers in, don't do that, put your thumbs in, don't throw the head back and break the line of the neck, and by far the most common error, instead of lifting up, like the Pillsbury Doughboy who just got poked, it's to drop the head. Then you don't get the rounding of the spine, which is really what we're looking for. We're looking for breadth across the upper back and length in the lower back, yeah? So when you exhale, think about sliding your hands up your legs, don't go down. Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah. And if you have somebody like Tony or the herniated disc guy, you say when you come forward, just a tabletop back. They don't have to go into any kind of arch, right? They can just go tabletop. Christy, anything else? Okay. No, thank you. I appreciate that because you're absolutely right. All right. Good. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Back bends, we've done quite a few back bends, but not all of them. And I'm looking down on page 4, lower on the page, chest openers. It seems to me we did a lot of chest openers, yes?
Yeah.
So we went over how to place blocks. I'm looking at chest openers now. We went over how to place blocks in under shoulders, all of that stuff, right? For Angel in the Snow? Yes. Side wall pushes, I remember doing that. We did all this stuff. Side plank. Did we go over how to teach side plank?
No.
Okay. No. See, Lisa, that's why. But you know what I like about what Lisa does is she goes, I'm going to try this. Let me see how it goes. And when she does it, you know what? If you didn't know, you go, okay, that's fine. Let's do it like that. Because she teaches with such confidence, you know. So she's more dangerous than anybody else. Because she says, whatever she says sounds good. All right. All right, because, you know, we kind of switched this format a little bit. So I'm trying to figure out how to get to here from there. Maybe what we do, has everybody practiced? Or has everybody practiced in Darcy's class or no? No, okay. So why don't we have somebody volunteer to lead the Vinyasa through spider on both sides? And, or maybe one person on one side and the other person on the other side? Or should we do one person whole thing? You pick. One person one side?
What side are you talking
Right and left.
about? Oh.
do the whole thing. I'll make the decision for you. Why don't we have somebody lead? Anthony will lead you so that everybody will have a chance to warm up, and then I think we'll go and we'll finish the back bend section as best we can without going to the extreme back bends. Does that make sense? And then, yeah, and then we'll go to side plank and stuff because we'll be warmed up. Why would I want to do back bends before I do side plank?
Do you need to strengthen the back before you're on the plane?
Whenever you do something before to get to something, it's generally because you're trying to open something, right? Because you could, and it's just a great example. Why would I not want to do something to strengthen something before I get to some pose I'm trying to teach? Because you don't strengthen that quickly, right? So you're building the strength in all your other things, yeah? So it would be to stretch something.
It's your freedom before concept, right?
Right. Well, and strength is a long-term project. So if I say, well, I'm going to teach side plank today to these people who can't do it at all, I'll do this to strengthen them up first, that's not going to work. You're right? They have to already have some level of strength to be able to do that. But I can say, if they've just come from sitting in their cars or sitting at their desks all day, if I'm going to do side plank, which is a big opener here, then I want to open the front body. So I would probably do some back bends, some things that open this and open the chest first. So maybe what we'll do is we'll do some back bends, we'll do some chest openers that maybe we haven't done yet, and then we'll get to that side plank thing. Somebody was here the other day when I just taught side plank.
I was.
Yeah, and it's not easy to teach because everybody's a little bit, it's a big pose. All right, so let's do that, and you can just jump in here. Such a good, did you Lisa?
Action, linking.
Yeah, it facilitates getting a lot of stuff out, yeah? And given that he had no preparation, I thought that was fine. Your 3 lanes were a little narrow though, Anthony. You could get a little notch wider because your one hip was behind the other. All right, you feel warm now? Relatively warm? All right, let's go to back bends. We talked about crescent pose already, right? We did Ardha, Shalabhasana, and Shalabhasana. I'm quite certain of it.
Yes.
Okay. We did windshield, do we do windshield wiper?
Yes.
Because yoga one,
Yes.
windshield wiper is a yoga one back bend, right? Because it opens the front body, you know, and the hip is all often forward of the knee. Standing and kneeling calf stretch, supine iliacus stretch. Do we do that?
Yes.
Yep.
That's
That's this one.
block.
I think we did.
You
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Right. What's the main action that stretches the iliacus in the supine iliacus stretch with block or blanket? What's the main action that stretches the iliacus?
belly into spine.
Belly into spine. Right. The belly. Rolling bridge. Oh, did we do rolling bridge? I don't
Yes.
think so. We did? Oh, sweet.
We made it
Yeah, we
almost
did
to
because you
section
said
one.
about, on the
Oh,
block,
sweet.
off the block.
Good. All right. Great. All right.
With variation.
Great. All right. So we've done all the yoga one back bends, basically. Great. Kneeling crescent with the blanket. Did we do that?
Yes.
Crescent from floor, palm tree, and with hands clasped. I think we
Yes.
did go over that. One
Yep.
hand, the other hand up. And then the fact that when you do the palm tree and crescent pose, you don't want to rotate and you're not trying to do a big thing. And the common error is to kind of hitch this hip up, right? And it's really just an accentuation, not a big thing, right? It's a way to accentuate this and accentuate the ribs, right? Okay, so Sphinx, do we do Sphinx and Cobra?
Yes.
Do we do Cobra?
Yeah.
Because I think we should do Cobra again. Quad stretch on the belly and on the side. I'm quite
Yeah.
certain we did that.
Mhm.
Yes? We've got all the variations on Ardha Shalabhasana are at worst, meaning Ardha Shalabhasana is not good for you. You have a back issue. What could you do?
Shoulder blades.
Just lay on your belly. is lay there. It's like Jim Bullington. Every time he does Irish Shalabasana, his back doesn't feel good. We can go over great detail as to what's going on with him, but he's there, he's telling you his back hurts, just lay on your belly. Breathe, right? It's gonna get the abdominal action. Then the next thing is to only reach the leg back. Keep the forehead on the floor. We had somebody, Yoga One on Saturday. She said, whenever I do anything on my belly, my back hurts. She's very tall, she has no core strength whatsoever. So that kind of explains it, right? So even here, taking her leg up hurt her back. So, but having her come here with a little blanket under her head, she was able to reach back, because even this is compressive, yeah? So the next stage would be this. The next stage might, for a lot of people, this feels more comfortable. You have to think about two people who have really big breasts. Sometimes this is kind of uncomfortable for them, so hands underneath the forehead. Yeah.
I'm trying to reason this out in my mind. Why isn't it putting a little blanket underneath the belly or just around the pubic bone to that person who has back problems helpful?
It is good.
Oh, it is something.
Yeah.
Okay, I was trying to think. So if that, I don't know whose name you mentioned has a bad back, if they had a little support there,
Mm-hmm.
would they do better? Would they be able to like lift their shoulders off the floor, or would that still be bad for them? Because you're not getting as much of an arch,
Yeah.
and there's not that lordosis
Right.
there.
Right. I guess it would depend. I would say, and I'm glad you mentioned that, putting a blanket under here just to lay down if they felt uncomfortable would be good. If you're in a big class, I probably wouldn't suggest that they do any of it, because you can't watch them and you don't
Right.
know. If you're in a
But
smaller class,
it's a legitimate
yeah.
adjustment.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that, and
Adaptation.
it's something I'd forgotten, so I appreciate it. Yeah, you can try that. But the thing is, when people are having that kind of, those kinds of poses, if we don't really know what's going on, we just want to be careful of. So in a group class, maybe you just say, put a blanket here, see how that is. If you've got a smaller group, maybe you can try that. Then it's squeeze between the shoulder blades, one arm or one leg. Then it's one arm, one leg. If they can't sweep the arm around, then it's reach through. And then it's 2 arms, 2 legs. And then maybe it's stay, 2 arms, 2 legs, long and low. And then with people who are more advanced, it's take the arms and legs a little higher. So now they sure are using the back muscles, but it's okay, yeah? If I was gonna ask somebody to take their arms up like this and their legs up like that, what would I want to make sure I had done first?
Shoulder openings.
Chest opening?
Main
That's
thing.
messed up.
Main thing. If all of this is bunched up, the quads are bunched up, the hip flexors are bunched up, and now I'm asking somebody to do a very big back bend, chances are this bunchiness will throw it right into the lower back. The more again, you could say, well, that will open the front body. Yes, it will. But when you go to a big back bend like wheel or Shalabhasana high, you want that front body to already be open to be able to achieve that. Does that make sense? Yeah, so quads, hip flexors, core muscles, yeah?
Can I add something?
Yeah.
There's a fair amount of research that says enacting any motion, such as Olympic people that will do the dive in their head before they do it.
Mm-hmm.
Dancers who prepare to dance and to rehearse. Mental rehearsal creates the neural pathways in the brain as if you've done it.
Right.
So for that person who's lying on the floor, relaxing suggestion may be to, even though you're not doing it, imagine as if you were doing it, and there would be a benefit to be derived from it. In other
Did you
words,
actually get physical benefit?
Yes.
Thinking
yeah,
that?
mental rehearsal
Like the
creates. I'll bring in the articles.
I know that this is true. I mean,
I'm just saying it may
Yeah.
be worth a suggestion.
But
saying
I
not
just
doing
kind of like the
something.
person to relax. Because, they don't even know how to do it.
No, but if you
It's-
think your way through it.
Yeah, but you know what that research shows? That the pianists, right? These were accomplished pianists who could visualize how to play that because they knew how to play it. You can't visualize how to do something you don't know how to do.
Oh.
Do you know what I'm saying? So I would suggest that in that moment, if it's a brand new student like Ann Hastings yesterday, who, you know, is just here trying to do the best she can, got lots of injuries, if I say, can you visualize how to do this, I think it's going to be confusing for her. I think it's going to be better for her just to say, breathe, breathe into the belly, breathe into the organs. Because I think, Victor, if you look at that research, you have to know how to do it first. You can't visualize how to play a piano piece that you don't know how to play.
Yeah,
Do you know
that would be good for someone like when I had my injury.
Right.
I could just visualize doing it. with
Right, or you
my-
do it with your opposite arm, and there's cross-education effect that brings effect here. But I would just like you to check that research, because I'm quite certain that's how it goes. And certainly, you know, I worked with a lot of Olympic gymnasts, a lot. And you wouldn't ask them to visualize a trick that they'd never learned how to do.
No, but, no, I'm not saying that you would ask them to do it, because that's asking them to do it.
No, even visualize it. I'm going to teach Ardha Shalabhasana, which I don't teach in Yoga 1. I only teach it in Yoga 2.
Well, that's what, here it's on there, it says one leg, no arm, so I'm thinking, can you do that?
Yeah. So Ardha Shalabhasana is the one where you're doing both arms, both legs. Sorry, one arm, one leg.
Right,
In Yoga 1, we start with reaching the leg back.
laying down.
Laying down,
Not
yes.
standing up.
You know, I have actually had people do this to feel the reach back. Often, if I'm going to teach Ardha Shalabhasana, I'll have them practice this action, standing up. So they know they have to look away from the sweeping arm. Or I'll say, let's all sit down and let's remember how to do a Barbie foot. And that's really about breaking down those component parts, right? And I'm quite certain we did that. Did we? The Barbie foot and this? Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're right, in Yoga 1, so now even in Ultra Gentle sometimes, right? We do this, reach back. Why do we do that? What does it do in the body?
Strengthens the lower back, or stretches the lower back.
It doesn't stretch the lower back, it compresses the lower back, actually.
Oh, because
You're strengthening,
So the main action, the main reason to do this is to stretch the hip flexors, to strengthen the glutes, the hamstrings, and the calves, right? So for example, when Christy and I go to Cancer Center, and these people are pretty weak, they have very weak butt muscles. They can't really do a lot of standing pigeon and the kinds of things, even Vini yoga is big for them. So, but they can lay down like this, maybe they have a blanket under here if they have a chest issue, and they can work here just to get a little bit more strength through here. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's the intention of Ardha Shalabhasana, is to strengthen the back body and stretch the front body. And to mobilize the shoulders and neck if the arm is moving. And if we're just doing this, to strengthen the rhomboids and the lower trapezius. Yeah? Okay, good. And I think that, you know, there's a reason that that's so included in all of the Vini Yoga work that Deskachar did, is because it's really, really valuable. It's definitely really good. As opposed to just learning Sphinx or Cobra or something like that. Okay, pigeon with torso lift, hands on blocks, roll down. I hardly ever do that. I don't even know why that's in here, but all right. So crescent with hands clasped behind back and back bent. Did we go over that yet? I don't think so.
Kind of when we did the power yoga opening thing.
Yeah, okay. So remembering that when you do this crescent pose, I've been watching you all in your own practice do this. A common error that I see is people doing this, right? Not you necessarily, but people in general, right? So we remember that if you think about a back bend in crescent pose as though you took one of those big rubber balls and you put it right here on your back. So you're not trying to push back or you push the ball away, right? You're trying to sink this bottom enough that you get a circle here. And then growing through the thoracic spine to lay back on that ball. If I just push my ribs forward, I come away from the ball, right? So remember that when you do this, don't straighten this and shove back. Think of your spine going up and over a ball. Does that make sense? And a common error here is to clasp the hands and then immediately go, right? And you want to take this, often I'll put this in because we've been doing a lot of hands down. So if you put this in between, now you get the arms going in the opposite direction, right? And when the head goes back, the shoulders have to be back and down and the jaw slightly open, right? So that we're not tightening up at that top.
Don't you usually tell people, is it bring your wrists as close as they can?
Right, right. So it's a great point. As opposed to this, can you see this?
Yes.
So can you see the stress on the wrists?
Yes.
Now watch my shoulders. Usually when people are like this, their back looks like that. You see my back broad? When they bring the wrists somewhat closer together, then they start to get this action. Because you can do this without even squeezing between here. So, everybody's got different back and different abilities. So I just try not to have it be like this. Even if it's like that, they're going to get more action in the back and less stress on the wrists.
What is it the shoulders are coming down, more down and back when the wrists come together?
When my wrists come together,
Yes.
I squeeze my arm bones more together. Right? See, I can be like this, and some people can't. Why would they not be able to get the palms together and get the arm bones together? What would be the main reason? Tight chest, right? And then sometimes it has to do with configuration of elbow. Some people, if they do this, Rob, when you do that, do your elbows pop out?
Yeah, I'm sure they, yeah.
But when you do it, how are you able to maintain your elbow situation? Can you stand up? Yeah. So Rob has been working on his hyperextended elbows so that they don't dominate his practice.
So, I guess I do.
Ah!
Sorry. I guess I do, yeah.
Yeah.
So I want my
my
chest to be
gosh.
open.
Yeah,
And then I-
yeah. But his elbows don't look that bad. Do you feel massive force on your elbow joint? No. Some people, their arms bend like 45 degrees. So that would look a little yucky. But especially even if you look in that Judith Lassiter book, Yoga Body, we try to encourage, like if Rob is standing there and his elbow is massively hyperextended in this position, I'll encourage him to soften it a bit. But if it's not hurting him, he can already go there. Would I yank on his arms and make it more? No. So it's kind of more like I don't want to force somebody into something if their elbows are going to hyperextend, but
Yeah, if I drive my hands
Yeah.
down,
Yeah.
that'll keep it from doing it. Like if I push my
Oh,
knuckles
that's a good
towards the
point.
floor, then it kind of.
yeah, but
That
then
is-
look at, come. This is a great point. Because why this is, I keep trying to think, how does this apply to Yoga 1, Yoga 2 also? So when you squeeze behind your back, generally, you want to square, right? You want this to be square. If he drags it down, right, now his trapezius isn't in a natural line. Can you pull it down further? See? And when he pulls it down like that, what happens right here?
Yeah.
Compression, right? So that's the main reason. I mean, most people, thank you so much, there are people who have very slopey shoulders, and they need to do more elevation, right? Because shoulders going down in a V like that, not so good. And I'm not talking about the bodybuilders with no neck, but just like people who have, but that's much less common than this, than scapular elevation. But for sure, pulling down like that creates compression here and juts this and disengages transverse abdominis. Okay? Yeah, so squaring, yeah? If somebody is, pretty tight here but safe, doesn't have a shoulder issue, and they're clasping, you can walk around and just we've done this in class, very gently give them a little squeeze here, yeah? And that feels really, really good if you have time. Can you flip upside down? And similarly, if she's here, say she was, go a little bit less,
Oh.
I could come and do this gently, right? Now, there are some people who, could you go a little tighter now? You okay? Safe?
Yeah.
Who force these shoulders that way, and then the scapula way up at the ears. So that's not so good either. What I usually do is I go like this. I just hold them. I just hold them here. And I say, shrug your shoulders up so that your hands come higher toward the ceiling. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Or I just pull them there. If they're hanging, then I'll just gently lift them up a little bit. So that, and I'll say it's nice to have space here. Don't. So Jenna, thank you so much. So the instruction on any kind of flipping upside down is that it's not so much over that's important. It's up and then over. Yeah. And similarly in Parvatanasana, it's not so much back that's important as up and back. Does that make sense? And Parvatanasana is one of those things where you think, oh, I don't want to do that with beginners because it's going to tighten their neck, right? But you can. I wouldn't make it my main posture all the time because it gives them the idea of what is lift, rib cage lifts, shoulders lift, and then every time I come up, I don't do like this. I do bend the elbows, feel the shoulder blades come down, feel the neck release, feel the shoulders release, yeah? And I also like to do head forward because it's a nice base of the neck stretch, yeah? But as long as you remember to say, you know, arms as straight as your arms can be, don't force back, lift up, and use it as a way to talk about rib cage lifting, about lifting up through the side waist, yeah? Okay. So that's crescent pose, flip over. That's the yoga 3 thing, yes? We talked about distance of hands. When you're doing anything with arms overhead, unless you have 180-degree flexion, not so good to be doing this, reaching forward and going like this, because you want to get as much through the triceps as you can, as much through the bottom of the rotator cuff. If you're very flexible, bringing the hands together is fine, but in general, when you see people, they're just doing kind of what they think yoga is, right? It's not as valuable for them as this would be. Yep. So.
Do you call that? Turn, roll your arms in, rotate your arms in.
You could say that, yeah. Rotate the biceps toward the head, or turn the thumbs back. Feel the biceps come toward the head. Wrap. That's the word you were looking for, right? And we use that we use that word all the time.
Oh, I have a question too.
Yes, ma'am.
I about this morning, but you said the other night. What is the word that, is it pelvic tilt?
Tilt.
Is that the word?
Yes.
Pelvic
Yeah.
tilt.
Tilt. Right. As opposed to pelvic tuck.
And is it your sacrum heading to the ground? Pelvic, tilt your pelvis and feel your sacrum going towards the floor?
Right. Correct. So, and this is a great point because we were talking about that in a lot of fitness classes. God forbid they have a class at the community center. I told you this already. Called Suck and Tuck.
Seriously?
And then all these old people, and I happened to walk by, and the lady's going, and they're barely standing up, and she's going, all right, suck that stomach in and tuck it under, and they're standing like this. And I'm like, all I had to do is go like this, and they go over, right? Like why they would teach that is just beyond me. So the idea is that we want to find neutral pelvis, right? We would call this an anterior or forward tilt, right? The pelvis is pouring me forward. And the purpose of that is what? Why would we need an anterior tilt? To come forward. And we have a posterior tilt, because if you think about, just think about this being, this is what nutation is. It's movement around a central axis, right? So if you picture your hips, and I say this a lot, having a pole right here, right? The pelvis doesn't want to tip forward like a bucket, like a popcorn bucket, going this way, nor does it want to tilt back and tuck under. It wants to be level, right? So that our spine can come up level, because if the pelvis is rotating back, the spine is coming up. If the pelvis is neutral, the spine can come straight up. So we don't want to tell people to tuck their butt under, but we can talk about how many people have a predisposition to tilting the pelvis forward, right? So they stand like this. So the standard instruction is, number one, take the thighs back. Number two, can you see that my pelvis is still tilted forward? Number two, lift the pubic bone and descend the tailbone. So now your tailbone does tend to come under, some people more than others. But if you tied a string to the top of your tailbone, not the curvy part of the bottom curvy part, and put a rock on the bottom, that string should hang straight down. It shouldn't swing between your legs like a dog with a tail between its legs, nor should it swing back. And I often use that analogy when I'm talking about it with classes, and I'll often have them do the bowing position. Put your hand on your belly, tilt your pelvis forward, find a level pelvis, clench and tuck under, and find the place where you're neutral, yeah? And how do you find that neutral spine? By breathing, right? When you breathe the ribs wide, and then you contract the pelvic floor and draw the lower belly into the spine, it will bring your pelvis level, unless you're here. If you're here, I can try to do that all I want, but I'm not going to change it. I've got to get the hips over the ankles first. Does that, yeah? So that's the idea of, and I see what you were saying, Suzanne, you were thinking tuck and tilt were the same thing. So clarification in terms, that's just the nature of it. And the reason I'm so against that word tuck is because it's used in a lot of fitness classes, and people will clench and tuck, yeah? So it's a little bit of a discussion. All right, so all the Yoga 3 and Yoga 4 back bends, I think you need to be a little bit more warmed up for. So are we warmed up enough to go over Cobra? If your back doesn't feel good, let's not do it, but let's go over that again, because I think that's the big line. When you get to Cobra, and so many people will never do Cobra in their practice. They will do Shalabhasana, maybe they'll do Sphinx, but they won't do Cobra or upward facing dog, because those are people who are going to be able to do a more athletic practice, right? But say you've got a Yoga 2 group, and we teach, sometimes I put Sphinx as Yoga 2 and Cobra as Yoga 3, and it kind of can vary. So we mentioned that Sphinx is this, right? I'm just reviewing. That the upper arm bones are perpendicular to the floor, the forearms are down, the legs are active, the shoulders are back, the belly is up. I can't, that's where that belly, when you see the thing with Leslie, he talks about like having a bag here, right? It's like your peritoneum is here and your pericardium is here and the diaphragm is in between. And if this bag is just descended with no support from the belly muscles and you're in a back bend, it pulls on your spine, right? So by using that core strengthening breathing, you're supporting your spine here. So it's not enough to simply be here and do nothing unless you're under the care of a qualified physical therapist who wants you to do this for a reason, right? That's a whole different practice. In yoga, we use the breath to support the back and back bends. In Cobra, by far the common error is to have the hands too far back and the elbows up. So which way is this pushing my shoulders? Forward, right? So then somehow I have to come up and try to get them back, and I can't, right? I can come to here. And sometimes I see people in our classes doing it like this. So I don't think it's because they can't come up, it's because they're in the wrong position, right? So the general rule of thumb of Cobra, just to repeat, this is the starting position. Somewhere like this, like somebody said, stick them up, and you went, ah! Right? Elbows in, middle finger in line with elbow. If you're kind of wide in your lats, your hands will be a little wider. If you're not, your elbows will be in. And there's some variety when you get down there. So the standard instruction is to say, The elbows should be touching the floor. Then the feet and the pelvis are the anchor. So here, when I do cobra, am I in a posterior tilt, an anterior tilt, or a neutral pelvis? Right. I am creating a posterior tilt to find a neutral pelvis. So it was, yeah. Because when I lay here, am I in an anterior tilt? Yes.
Yeah.
Can you see it? Not everybody would be, but especially people with flexible hamstrings, my pelvis is slightly forward. I have slight compression here right now. So I need to press my feet down, press my pubic bone in so that these hamstrings and butt are engaged without turning out and clenching, right? Because then I'm on the sciatic nerve. So with the legs straight, I engage the back of the body. And all you have to say is press your feet down. Don't let the feet be light. Press the feet down, pubic bone down. Then inhale, expand the chest. Exhale, push down with the hands and pull them back so the spine peels up off the floor. As you come down, exhale, pull the hands towards your ribs so that you're pulling the spine long, both coming up and coming down. Now, why did I use an inhale and then an exhale? How come, since it's a chest expander, I didn't just inhale up and exhale down?
A lot of exertion.
When you pull forward your
You're contracting your belly muscles.
It's a trick question. If I were going fast, I would inhale up, exhale down, right? So say I was familiar with this. I chaturanga, I'm doing a flow. Inhale, exhale. Breathe in, exhale, go back, right? But now we're learning it, right? And we're going slow. So you can't have people inhale. Okay, let's inhale here. Make sure your feet are down. Make sure your pelvis is down. Okay, don't forget you're supposed to be inhaling here. This is too long, right? So inhale, get to here. Here you're using your spinal erector muscles. Exhale, push down to come up. Inhale here one more time or two more times. Breathe. Exhale, pull down to come down. Because that was one thing we commented on Tuesday, is you can't give too many instructions on one breath, right? You have to think about how long have they been there now, right? And especially as new teachers, that was, I was horrible at that. I used to try to give so much information. All my teachers would say, your students are going to ache afterwards because you hold them there so long and you haven't told them to breathe, right? So live and learn, right? And I still remember that because guess what? They did not say it nicely. Your brain is like Velcro for negative comments and like Teflon for good comments. It's true.
That's true.
So, every negative thing any teacher ever said to me about yoga, I remember. And in a way, it's good because I never did that again. So or maybe I didn't. So we'll try to be as nice as we can be. All right.
So, Audrey, can I ask you one more question? So you're on the exhale, you're pushing down with your hands here. Are you pulling back with your hands too?
Yeah. Because as you pull back, that's what helps you pull forward, right? Does that mean if I was gonna combat crawl along here, right? It's a baby stool. Yeah, good. All right, yeah. So that's Sphinx, or Cobra. Now, what if somebody's got this wrong and you want to help them? Let's go over that. Rob, do you mind? You back okay?
Yeah.
So put your hands too far forward and your elbows up. So now you're walking around the room, you're trying to help somebody. He's up. Go make some like weird cobra thing. Okay, so I don't try to fix him here. I say, could you go down, please? Then I take his hands and I put them somewhere here. Elbows down. There you go. That's it. So, and I'll always say, we might have to fix this. Again, this might not be exactly where, but let's try it here. Okay, so press the feet down. And now exhale all your breath out. See, he starts to come up. I have him right here. He's not going anywhere. Exhale all your breath out. Inhale, expand the chest. Exhale, push down with the hands, pull it. So I have them right here. And sometimes if they're hanging, I'll hold them here. Yeah, right underneath the ribs like that. And then roll down slowly. Yeah. So something like that. Did that feel all right?
Mhm.
Yeah? What you don't want to do is just come like this and go wonk, right? Or sometimes if they're really kind of tentative, I'll say inhale, start to pull the chest forward, and I'll just put my hands right here. And so I'm showing him that his belly button come off. And I'll say, as he's going, thank you, come on down. I'll say, does this feel okay on your back? And if they say it's too much, then I'll say, show me what would feel good in terms of coming up. You know? And for most people coming to Yoga 2 and Yoga 3, that's kind of okay. It's not okay for everybody. All right? Is there any questions on that one? Okay. Upward facing dog, we kind of went over we kind of go over that a lot in Yoga 3 and Yoga 4 classes, so I kind of like to leave that for that. Because if you're not going to teach that and you're not going to do that in your practice, then I think that it's probably not so valuable here. Pigeon with torso lift, hands on blocks, roll down. That's this one. Yeah. Sometimes I do this, hands on blocks. Kind of old fashioned. We used to do this a lot years ago. So the intention is good because what is the intention of doing this? Stretch the iliopsoas, yeah? But the potential also for back compression is high, yeah? So if the person comes up and they don't have very much opening here, they're more like this, but they see that everybody else is up and they go like this, they're not really getting it from here, they're getting it from here. So I would think of this, I think I'm going to move that over to Yoga 3. I would think of that more like Yoga 3, because in Yoga 2 you're just learning to do pigeon on your knees anyway, so I think maybe that's a Yoga 3 practice. Does that all make sense to you?
Your front foot is supposed to be flexed, correct?
Correct. Was mine not?
No, I don't know. I just wondered what.
Yes.
I know I've heard it say because it's protecting your knee.
Yeah. What happens often is that when you put this, it's like a brake, right? Because people will tend to put too much weight forward into the knee. When you put this foot here, it kind of breaks you from, see the break?
Yeah.
From going into the knee. Yeah. So that's why we want the foot kind of turned this way.
Is there a difference in the makeup of the class and when you do pigeon on the floor versus standing pigeon?
Great, yeah. So is a less strong group than a Yoga 2 of the evening. And I had them do it with chairs and push the chair forward and stand up. So the thing with any strengthening pose that also involves balance is that if the student is struggling with the balance, they can't get the strength. So better to use a chair or the wall or something to get the stretch or the strength, whatever you're trying to get. So we also did catch your foot here, which seems easy to you, but for a lot of people this is kind of big. So instead of just asking them to do it here and say, let's see how this goes, have them hold a wall and see how it goes, so they don't have to deal with the balance, they can just work on this. And if they can't catch the foot here and you are doing it at the wall, what can you do?
Straps.
Get a strap, right? So a belt like this. Sometimes people like to put a belt over the shoulder like this. I always find that the person ends up fiddling with the strap too much. I like to think of a strap just as an arm extender. It's just doing that, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. Then they're not kind of struggling. Yeah.
I'm sorry. On pigeon, it's the iliopsoas that's getting stretched.
On the back leg, yes.
On this leg.
Yes, yeah.
This
because-
leg is here.
Yeah, or here. It's for some people they feel more in the hamstring. For some people, they feel more in the outer hip, but in general, it's meant to be an abductor stretch. Abductor, outer hip stretch, like revolved triangle. So all the abductor stretches, revolved triangle, revolved half moon, pigeon, gomukhasana, all those things that inwardly rotate the thigh bone. Yeah, those stretch the outside hip. Yeah? Yes?
On the pigeon, can you please clarify for me, separate from the flexion in the foot, the tibia and fibia, isn't that supposed to be perpendicular to your mat? I've heard different things.
Sure. No, it's a great question. So that's why sitting in the chair is really good, because you do get that leg absolutely square like this as you lean over it. So the shin is parallel to the front edge of the mat. For most people, bringing the foot that far forward isn't accessible to them. They aren't able to get it that far forward. And even if they could, if they kind of approach it here like this, up on blocks, holding the foot, it's pretty stressful. So and you could do that if you were very warm and you were set up for it. So in general, we just say knee outside the ribs slightly. Common error is to have the knee way too far or to have the knee tucked under the body, right? And the foot slightly flexed and the shin wherever it will go. And most people get a pretty good stretch here. Now, if somebody has a hamstring issue or feels like it's a little bit too much on their knee, putting a blanket or a block under